I ain't gonna lie, I love this movie. The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So The Amazing Spider-Man is the sequel to the reboot of the Spider-Man franchise. I love the Sam Raimi films, but I do have problems with the third though. I like the first Amazing Spider-Man, but my problem with the film is they rebooted it with the origin story. I don't want to see the origin story. We already know how Peter Parker became Spider-Man. Just have him already be Spider-Man from the get-go and show his origin through flashbacks. But nonetheless, I gave the movie a B+ for I will buy it on Blu-ray. I was really looking forward to The Amazing Spider-Man 2 because it continues the story and I thought it would be the true Spider-Man experience that we all know and love. And it had 3 villains, which could be a blessing or it could be a curse because they tried to do that with Spider-Man 3 and that didn't really turn out too well. But in this movie, Peter Parker, he's been Spider-Man for quite some time now. He's still trying to find more info on his parents, which I like because they tried to do that in the first movie, but they ended up not really following through with that. Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man / Peter Parker has finally sold me. Now granted, Andrew Garfield sold me in the first movie, but I'm saying, Tobey Maguire, he'll always have a special spot in my heart as Spider-Man, but Andrew Garfield in this movie is the quintessential Spider-Man. He's funny, smart, just like in the comics. I love the Peter Parker Gwen Stacy stuff, but their little will they or won't they relationship got kind of annoying to a point. But how they handled the situation off her deceased father, in which in the first film he told him to keep away from Gwen Stacy because otherwise he's going to put her in danger, I thought they handled that really well. I swear, Gwen and Peter are the most believable relationship in any Marvel comic superhero film ever. And it's not because of the fact that Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone are a couple in real life, but it just worked because the chemistry that they have in real life, it works for this film. Sally Field returns as Aunt May. I wasn't sold on her as Aunt May in the first film, but after seeing this movie, I am more than sold. There's a scene in the film where I was like, dude, where was this in the first film? I'm not going to spoil it for you, but when you see it, you're going to be like, that's the scene Big Brad was talking about. Now for the villains. One they could have kept in the film, the other two I go back and forth of whether or not they could have kept it in the film or not. The one they should keep in the film, Jamie Foxx as Electro. At first he's some science electrician named Max. He is totally Edward Nygma from Batman Forever. But when he becomes Electro, it's the coolest shit ever. That first scene in Times Square gave you the chills. And later on in the film, he starts to come into his own. Now the other two, Paul Giamatti as Rhino, I felt he was a little too cartoonish and they could have totally cut him out of the movie. But they didn't, because they are using him to set up for the Sinister Six movie that Sony's trying to make. I just felt that he was just a little too cartoonish. That being said, Rhino himself, I really liked his suit. Harry Osborn turning into the Green Goblin. I loved him as the Green Goblin in this film, but I have to admit he was a bit shoehorned into this movie. Especially knowing his sole purpose of bringing him into this film. For only 2 reasons. One, to set up for the Sinister Six movie. The second reason, something happens in the film that I'm not going to spoil for you, but again, any true Spider-Man fan would know what I'm talking about. With that being said, I really like Dane DeHaan's take on the Green Goblin. If you feel like there are too many villains in this movie, I feel like all the villains shared equal time. Electro had enough time to develop, Harry Osborn had enough time to develop, Harry had enough time to develop, though I felt he was shoehorned in at the end. The Rhino was just misleading in all the marketing, which was another issue that this movie had because they showed way too much of this movie in all the trailers and all the marketing and all the posters and stuff. This movie does feel a little choppy, which was an issue in the last movie, and I want to see what they cut in this movie. Like for instance, Mary Jane was actually supposed to be in this movie. They shot her scenes and everything, but they cut her out. But they cut all her scenes out of the movie for the sake of focusing something that happens in this movie that, again, I'm not going to spoil for you. Which you'd think would make sense, but the film was still choppy. Mark Webb, if you have a director's cut, please release it to us, please. In the end, I really liked this movie just a tad more than the first Amazing Spider-Man. It's not the definitive Spider-Man experience, but it's almost up there, though. I did have problems with it. They could have cut 1 or 2 villains out. It was too choppy, and the marketing for this movie kind of ruined it for me. But I still loved it. nonetheless. But if you're one of those people out there that like this movie a little less than the first movie, I understand. I'm just saying, I loved it for where I'm standing. So I will give The Amazing Spider-Man 2 an A- for its a low full price. Also, if you go on my Tumblr page, I wrote reviews on all the previous Spider-Man movies. Check that out. The links are in the description below. That's it for the day. You like what you see, you want to see more, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to my other channel. The links are in the description below. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr, and check out my website. Peace.